You're watching World Talks on TVP World. I'm Aaron Darman. Fuel prices in Russia are skyrocketing, with some independent filling stations reportedly selling petrol for more than 100 rubles a litre for the first time. It comes as Ukraine's attacks on oil refineries ramp up, pumping pressure on the Kremlin's energy infrastructure across the country. Here to break it all down is Sergey Vakulenko, Senior Fellow at the Carnegie Russia Eurasia Center. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
So we're seeing Kyiv hit oil refineries hard. We're seeing Russian fuel prices skyrocket. Is the Kremlin in real trouble?
Russian economy is starting to feeling difficulties. Definitely the feelings towards Kremlin and the government are going down, and Russian population is grumbling in all those long fuel lines. But Kremlin is still upbeat and still thinking that it can win the war.
What about the Russian people? Could this turn the tide on Vladimir Putin, especially as locals report economic conditions getting worse and worse?
They are definitely getting worse, and state finances are not good, and tax collection is down, and people feelings are definitely hurt, and you can see quite a lot on social networks and like. So probably government approval is going down as well, but it's not anywhere close of revolution or something like that. And repressive machine of Russian state is quite strong too.
To be clear, do you believe President Putin could face conflicts on two fronts? I mean, both military in Ukraine, but also socially and politically in his own country. Is that a possibility either in the future or in the near future?
I think definitely not in the near future. It's hard to say about further away from now. But for now, if anything, there's probably some rolling around the flag. Well, as it happens in most cases, yes, people are unhappy that the government can defend them from all this unpleasantness. Well, the very idea of the war, when it was started 4 years ago, that is not a war, it's a special military operation, and life goes on as usual in Russian cities. So citizens shouldn't worry about anything. Well, now it's not true. Now the war is being brought to Moscow, as you can see on this quite impressive footage. And yes, people are not happy about that, but I don't think there is any unrest on the books yet, nowhere near.
How telling is Vladimir Putin's admission of fuel shortages early this week? What do you read into that? Because it seems like a rare concession on his part, right?
Well, he's not a fool, so sometimes he tries to deny the obvious, but now it's so obvious that it's just impossible to deny without looking an idiot, so he doesn't.
What has driven Ukraine's revival and push to hit energy infrastructure in recent weeks? Why do you think it's been so much more effective than before?
It's just the availability of the drones at Ukraine's disposal. If you look at the numbers of shut down drones reported by Russian Ministry of Defense, it's substantially on the rise, about 50–70% higher than it was at the beginning of the year. And all these attacks against refineries is just numbers game. It's just the size of a swarm of drones you send. Many of them would be downed by air defenses, but some would get through. And if you see a swarm big enough, it would get to its target. And then now Ukraine can send these swarms nightly and target with large number of drones several refineries per week, and repeatedly do it every 2–3 weeks or so. So just when the repairs are over, Ukraine can hit them again and again. So now the quantity turns into quality, as they say. And suddenly single digits reduction in refining runs turn into 25–28% reduction in refining run. And what was abundant in the past suddenly becomes in shortage.
I'm curious, practically speaking, how much damage high fuel prices, damaged oil refineries do to the broader economy in Russia? I'm thinking about transport, about productivity, especially during wartime. How do you read that?
People are spending time standing in lines. It start create disruptions in road transport, and there's actually quite a few being transported by lorry these days in Russia. In Soviet Union, it was mostly by railroad, but now, for example, a largest ice cream manufacturer in Russia with like 30% market share or so is in Krasnodar in the south of the country, and cars can get, lorries can get out of there. So currently, we are in a situation where supermarkets start to have difficulties filling their shelves just because their suppliers are far away and they cannot send the trucks through. Sometimes it's a situation that these trucks run on diesel. Diesel is more or less available still, but it's just because the line to the filling station is one and the same for diesel and for gasoline, these trucks have to spend hours and hours in lines. So that, for example, either makes transportation expensive or transportation companies don't want to take an order at all just because it's not worth their while. So it start to create at least some dents in moving goods around the country, and definitely has quite substantial impact on lives of ordinary citizens.
I want to ask you about Crimea, because obviously a lot of Ukraine strikes have also been targeted on Russia's supply lines there. Do you count it as possible for Ukraine to isolate Crimea, to isolate the territory and effectively make it an island?
It's an excellent question, and indeed, there was a separate effort with separate kind of drones, middle strikes, not deep strikes, so with a range of something like 100 kilometers or so, targeted at the corridor going along the north shore of Sea of Azov at the occupied Ukrainian territory, so-called land bridge. And yes, it's targeted at least limiting road traffic towards Crimea. It doesn't hit that many cars. It's probably like 10, 15 hits per day, but it definitely creates a sense of danger and raises the cost of supplying Crimea. What they can send there via the Crimean bridge is still intact, and Crimean bridge is heavily defended, but it definitely creates substantial difficulties in supplying the peninsula. Whether Ukraine would manage to cut the supplies at all altogether, probably not at the moment, but severely limiting them, yes.
Now, Ukraine has positioned all of this as a 40-day pressure campaign to end the war. Spell it out for me. Will this all just be hitting everyday Russian people, for example, at the pump, or do you think it could shift perspective in Vladimir Putin's mind?
Well, we probably better ask Mr. Syrskyi and Mr. Budanov and other Ukrainian commanders on what are the other pressure points they're going to apply pressure to. Usually this doesn't work. Usually these attacks do not break a nation's psyches. That was exactly the plan that Mr. Putin had last winter when he ran his attacks against Ukraine energy infrastructure. And Ukrainians truly suffered during winter. It was quite harsh. With severely limited power supply and district heating and like, but it didn't break their will to fight and the will to continue the war and so on. To be honest, I don't think Russians are any weaker than that.
Sergey Vakulenko, Senior Fellow at the Carnegie Russia Eurasia Center, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And that's all for this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. Do stay with us for more news and analysis. Goodbye for now.